And welcome. We're about to witness another Hall of Fame Shoutcast. I did the first one yesterday. I rather enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I'm going to endeavour to do the same again today. Let's have a look at what we're looking at. We're looking at the second game in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to be doing every single one. I've realised just how many there are and how daunting a task that would be. So I'm trying to be a bit selective. And it just so happens the second game in the collection is the exact game I'm looking at doing now. Nystrom versus Ahenian. Nystrom as the allies, Ahenian as the Axis. Obviously, there's only two factions at this stage in the game. Pretty obvious. Maybe there's one or two viewers that didn't quite know that. Who knows? Yeah, so we've got Nystrom as the Americans, Ahenian as the Wehrmacht. And if we scan through this, we've got a lot of reviews. This thing's been up here for 6 years now. So there's been a lot of people in the community that would have seen it. In fact, there's been 2,960 downloads in total, which goes to show our community isn't as big as sometimes we might think. Well, the competitive multiplayer aspect anyway. And let's have a look. Just in case you've never seen it, by the way, this is the older menu. It's quite tactile. I quite like it. It's very clicky. Everything opens quite quickly. There's no need to log into Relic Online to view a replay. It's all rather lovely jubbly. Let's load the game. Whilst this is loading, I'm quickly going to bring up Korra. Well, I may not actually. That's a bit of a spoiler. You can see which doctrine they've chosen and stuff, and I'll leave that till later. And let's witness it. Right. Of course, let me just make sure my broadcast is actually cooperating this time. Fatal, can you confirm? Yeah, anyway. I'm going to do the old Shoutcast trick of pretending work as producing the Tier 1 structure is interesting. Of course, it'd be great if I had a co-commentator we could talk about, you know, the weather at this point or what have you. Basically, it's like an opening in chess. That's the way I look at it. E2 to E4, 2 pioneers construct a Wehrmacht quarters. It's the same old story, but it's exponentially from this point onwards. The variables increase dramatically, of course. That goes without saying. And let's look at the tactical map. The American player choosing to take the early resources. The American player that we'll refer to as from now as Nystrom. Ahenian, by the way, a little bit of context. He's in a lot of Hall of Fame replays. He's been he was dominating the early competitive scene quite a lot. You can see I'm on a few Tales of Heroes episodes. Rifle's the first unit chosen. Pretty self-explanatory. We've got Volksgrenadiers. So unlike yesterday when we saw Jeep and Bike opening respectively. And what is it to say? We're both going for the right side, however. Yesterday we saw the old-fashioned, as I like to think of it, Wehrmacht on the left with the barbed wire cutting the American off from advancing. Here we've got Volksgrenadiers capping the right, eerily reminiscent of, obviously, the current Wehrmacht metagame. And Volksgrenadiers too, obviously with the double MG build from yesterday. It's quite different to see that this time. And it's difficult to know what's about to come out, so I'll have to stop doing that. So keeping a distance from this Volksgrenadier in the house, obviously, I would think in a modern game we'd see the rifles and the engineers try and tackle those Volksgrenadiers. Perhaps houses were more of a formidable obstacle. We definitely know that in terms of MGs, but yeah. We can start to think of this. It's a month into the retail version of Company of Heroes at this stage. It's October. So they have really started, especially the guys that have been playing beta up until this point, to really get a good feel for the game and what they're capable of doing. Nearly Jeep is the second unit out for Nystrom against Pioneers. You wouldn't favour the Pioneers in this case. Look at them. 2 men remaining, a minuscule amount of health. You've got to be worrying for their existence on this plane of tangibility at this point. And what is there to say at this point? We've got a battle for the plus 16 fuel, that's what there is to say. Battling for this yellow cover, there's not much to be talked about there. And as always in Company of Heroes, the early game leads to greater things to come. Jeep gives covering fire. slowly soft pedaling away. No need to retreat at this point. Although we do see the Volksgrenadiers feeling worse for wear. Obviously with a close range battle, especially classically in Company of Heroes, the rifles have always had a higher rate of fire, whereas the Wehrmacht's accuracy over a longer distance is slightly more favourable for them. That goes without saying. Considering 98% of my viewers, or the viewers of this video slash cast, have played this game to death themselves, you've got to cast a game as though you're playing, you're casting it for somebody that's never seen it before, I suppose. And for the others, it'll just act as lovely background noise, like they're in a lift. I expect this to be an MG. Let's have a quick scan to see what we're seeing here. With this early Shoutcast system, we can't quite tell. That's an MG. You can see his gun belt there. And the Americans have had the advantage in terms of fuel. That's to be noted. Obviously, the Wehrmacht, in any point of the Company of Heroes' career as a game, have always needed fuel as a resource. Arguably more so than the Americans, because of veterancy, to tear up in terms of the structures. Americans need fuel, but Wehrmacht need it ever so slightly more. Unless, of course, you're Alias and you construct 20 Volksgrenadiers as your opening. No disrespect to Alias there. MP40s straight away with the MP44 icon, as I pointed out yesterday, which is strange. They're going to dominate this three-man rifle squad. Oh, we might see them down. In fact, we do see riflemen down straight away. Lose it. That's a big loss for the Americans. Obviously, with a Hall of Fame replay, we are going to see the Americans be able to bounce back from this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worthy of that designation. Oh, some early Jeep pushing. That's nice to see. It is literally, that's classic Jeep pushing. Vintage pushing from the Jeep. Some vacant engineers there, really making sure they've secured this fuel point, doubly so with an OP coming up. I was too quick to write them off as being poor micromanagement. So if I'm not much mistaken, we've seen a rifle Jeep rifle opening. Perhaps another rifle in there thrown in for good measure. That's 1, 2. No, I was right the first time. Oh, the MP40 Volksgrenadiers, the heroes of... Ah, yes, they're making their exit. That man, literally, he's got one arm, one leg. He's the Black Knight from Monty Python's Holy Grail. He'll be back. No sign of tech yet from the Wehrmacht player. You wouldn't be expecting that in a modern game either at this point, of course. Kriegsbarracks are usually expected around the 8th minute, perhaps, from there onwards. But yeah, the Wehrmacht still hasn't had... Finally had this fuel, of course, but they haven't had it for very long. Yet the US has had a steady supply of fuel, initially on the right, now on the left with an OP. You'd be expecting to see the Americans, yeah, the supply yard is coming up. We're going to see either Tier 3 or Tier 4 quite handily within the 10-minute mark, I'd expect. Jeep marauding around the map, looking for victims. You'd be fearing the Jeep for the Jeep an early Faust, perhaps, if we've seen Tier 2. No, but the close-range MP 40 volts proving more than a match for the lovely little Jeep here, half health. I'm just watching these engineers now. Are they going to start constructing an arm production facility? No such skill. We all seen the Americans occupying the strong house here next to the cutoff. Why they don't go for the cutoff? Why don't they go for it? Ah, it's a standoff. We've got MP40 Volksgrenadiers preventing it. Ah, standoff. It's always lovely seeing go. Two players waiting to see who's got the bigger test of set of cojones. And here's the metagame. Green, cover, rifles. Oh, MP40 Volks, this is a close test. Oh, the rifles have had to make an early exit there. They just about kept the cover intact, and the Jeep will now preserve that, not cover rather, but strategic point cutoff. The Wehrmacht in turn producing an OP. If you ever read strategy guides, as I did before I even played the game, because I didn't have the computer to play it for many years, OPs used to be sought after, highly more so than they are in the modern game. Maybe on Semwa you'll regularly see them for top level play, but in the early days they were always OPing fuel. It was a massive part of their strategies. All the advice in the early forums was OP, OP, OP. Not on the balanced forums either. Observation points. I'd love to see how many men these Volksgrenadiers with submachine guns have killed, because I'm guessing they've polished off an entire squad. And of course this is the other one from earlier. Still, we've got this little standoff. They're really sticking at this here. Nystrom in the house. The Volksgrenadiers waiting, just waiting, daring them to exit. Here we go, here we go. Oh, is he just tickling him? Is he just tickling him? Oh yes, here we go. Is he going to jump back in the house? You'd expect something? Yes, he is. Oh. And back to the status quo. Oh dear, oh dear. Not the greatest advertisement for the game as a realistic World War II simulator. It doesn't claim to be, but that wouldn't be a good advertisement of it regardless. And the Jeep perhaps coming, and the engineers, oh, rifles rather, coming to perhaps provide backup, covering fire. Or vice versa for the men in the house. Oh, early loss of the Volksgrenadiers. Obviously, the modifier for the capping men there was terrible. They lost 4 men. A 5-man squad down to 1 as it retreats. And we've seen a few of those 1-man retreats in this game. They're really on a knife's edge in terms of gambling with their men. And these commanders are ruthless. An MG on a hard building, never the best option for an MG. And the Americans still dominating possession, especially if they wipe this cut-off point. And is this the turning point in the game? They're attacking the Wehrmacht's OP point with a arguably not the best structure destroyer. And here we go, there's tier 4, that's what I was waiting for earlier. The tank depot is go. Will he have enough fuel to start producing something straight away? You'd be expecting him to wait for a Sherman with this much infantry on the field. And tier 3, a Puma has now hit. Here we go. The veterans amongst you may fear the Puma. The newbies amongst us, we don't fear it as much. Its balance has been a tale of ups and downs throughout the company of heroes. These rifles still getting peppered. Oh my god! They didn't retreat! That building just became a vacant building and not 1 man exited. They held it for as long as they could, but they spent their lives. That was the price they had to pay. And now the Wehrmacht has control of one of its own territory sectors again, hopefully trying to link its fuel back up. Here we go, an M10 is the answer to the Puma. Will we see the notoriously unreliable M10 thwarted by the Puma's mobility modifiers? Or will we see a quick devastation of the tier 3 armour? Oh, the M10 choosing instead to take out its wrath on this building. Perhaps inadvertently. In fact, I'd wager that's the most likely. There we go, a misfire from the M10. It's unreliability, even a feature at this level of the game. And the rear Marhammer hit, more than making up for it though. A third of the health now distinguished. We've got a Jeep deterring any push of the Wehrmacht on the left there. This Puma is not looking favourable. Destroyed engine, it's only a matter of time. Bars upgraded for the riflemen. Perhaps an answer to the MP40s. Will we see the riflemen pitch their battles. Ah, Stug. Stug is more than a match for an M10 destroyer. Because the Stug isn't, by some people's definitions, a tank. It could be called an assault gun. Sure, Imperial Dane could fill us in on his cast if I'm sure he has many times. More rifles being produced, no doubt. Or perhaps stickies at this stage of the game. With motor pool not on the field, perhaps American armour is an answer for the Wehrmacht Panzer Fist. That's now working its way through the rear lines of the Americans. In terms of level of player, from what we're seeing here, I'd nominate these guys to be pretty darn good, especially at this stage of Company of Heroes. Already seen advanced tactics such as the standoff. To me, that's impressive anyway. Tank destroyer, it's got to bide its time now. Utterly ineffective on the battle in answer to the Sturmgewehr. Nope. Yep, you're just going to stay there. You thought about it, you decided against it. Not an unwise decision. What are we getting from Tier 3 on the Wehrmacht side? Another Stug 4. Oh, the Americans are going to be utterly ineffective. You'd be hoping they'd be building a Sherman at this point. Sherman's main armament against armour, as proven in yesterday's episode, was highly more effective at this stage of the game. M10, oh, he's going to get surrounded if he's not careful. Calmly reversing away from the situation. 3/4 health remaining. Come on, Stug 4. Now's your time to shine. You have the numbers advantage. Not for much longer, however, because we've got the Sherman entering the field. So two tanks in inverted commas versus 2 other tanks. I'll stop using arrow keys if I can now. Slightly jerky camera work. Sturmgewehr fears the sticky. Oh, you'd love to see some Vetru on these Stug 4s to give them the anti-infantry capabilities we're also used to seeing. The Sherman racing down the road. It knows the Stug 4 is in, but it's an ambush. It pedalled back until it was in a funnel of fire. And it draws first blood against the Sherman. Pioneers performing combat repairs from behind the heavy hedge cover. Oh my! Off map! Infantry doctrine chosen! Oh, the Pioneers have got to be fearing for their lives at this point. The 2 Stugs caught in the crossfire. Oh, largely ineffective, and has he shown his hand at this point, you've got to think? Will the Wehrmacht be watching for that smoke now? Splooged all of his munitions on that. A shell bouncing loftily into the loft of that building. Frontal armour penetration from the Sherman, rather lucky you might say. That miss more than makes up for that piece of luck there. Of course, the random number generators of Company Heroes intended to balance themselves out over the course of a game. Ah, the Shermans spying the Stug lying in wait. In Company Heroes 2, that would not occur. It would not know the Stug would be there. And soft pedaling away. So let's do an armour count. We've got the Jeep, an M10, another Stug entering the field. 3 Stugs for the Wehrmacht. There's the OP finally going to go down. Those rifles, the only thing warding off the Wehrmacht from trying to take an inroad into the left side of the map. We've got an on-map howitzer, so we'll have to watch out for that. I believe we've already heard it fire. Ah, it was on the base. The Wehrmacht quarters is taking a pounding. Perhaps if the Americans had seen the structure with a sight, it could have had a smaller scope of fire and taken a lot more damage on the structure anyway. Even top-level players, I think, don't take that to account at the best of times. Nebelwerfers, mortar fire, Howie shots. If you can see what you're attacking, the area of effect is a lot smaller, the scope is smaller, thus the damage is greater. Yeah, somebody in the chat of the stream of this Shoutcast just said it's an archaic replay system. That's one word for it. There's no unit indicators, there's no resource overlay, there's no number of units killed, and underneath my pretty face, just to the right here, there is no option to speed it up, slow it down, pause it, stop it, restart it, as Daft Punk might say in one of their songs. For you that got the reference, that was for you. So we've got a brutal combination that is an anti-infantry capability such as a howitzer going to have much effect against the armour the Wehrmacht is clearly fielding. 3 Stoke 4s. A firestorm with the audio cue that isn't present in the current game. The whistling of the shells as they pierce the air, break the sound barrier. So Terror Doctrine, and you've got to be fearing the Tiger Ace in the late game. And I may pause the game at that point to go in a little bit of detail about that. Spoiler alert. I knew what doctrines they were before the game started, I must say, but I haven't actually ever seen it before. In fact, this is the only second 1.2 patch game I've ever seen in my entire Company of Heroes career. The OP is now missing from Ahenian's army. He's finally getting his fuel taken away from him, after only having exactly a quarter of the map for the duration of this contest. What is the Wehrmacht waiting for? More Stugs by the looks of it. Let's have a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the 5th Stug looking worse for wear, however. So let's say 4 1/4 Stugs. And let's have a count of the American armour. Obviously, the Americans have had to build this howitzer, which cost a mighty amount of fuel. Nearly enough for another Sherman. And other than that, they've just got a Sherman and an M10. So if the Wehrmacht were to push, especially if they had veterancy, obviously they don't with the fuel they've been spending on Stugs, it could be an annihilation victory. You've got to be feeling that at the moment from the Wehrmacht perspective. If only Ahenian had the foresight of knowing what just how little armour the American had at this point. The Sherman playing a dangerous stance. Drawing friendly fire from the Stugs. That's something you don't see in the modern game. That's something you saw a lot of in the early game. Veterancy for the Sherman. All he needs to do is make it out of there. Cleverly brought their Stug like a bull in Spain to hurt its counterpart. Oh, it bites the dust. He should have gotten out of there. He had no damaged engine. Why would you feel a pitched battle against 2 heavy assault guns? Veterancy Sherman is lost. No tank is building. All we have keeping the Wehrmacht at bay is stickies and a single M10 tank destroyer. And of course, in the higher echelons of play, what do they say? Never use sticky if you're not going to destroy the vehicle you're intending to destroy. It's a last-ditch resort anti-tank measure. It's never been more than that. If you throw your Vector 3 infantry at King Tiger, only with stickies expect to lose the game. At least that's how I see it. But the on-map Howie has finally done its damage. The Sherman looking to take out the tier 3 and tier 1 structures. Perhaps it should have targeted the Tier 3, especially seeing as though it was building. You've got to be saying nystrom should have seen the building Q. Oh, were both destroyed there. Very clever. I spoke too soon. nystrom used artillery and the Sherman to devastating. Both capabilities combined. Devastating effect. And the Sherman using its superior maneuverability to hopefully get out of there. Doing a quick Tony Hawk's-esque maneuver over there. Oh, but with a damaged engine, you're not favouring his chances of survival here. Sturmgewehr bouncing off the M10. Tank destroyer, more of a tank. Inconvenience by the looks of things. Puma giving superficial covering fire. And a Stug! Is a Stug going to go down to stickies? With not having any veterancy, they have no anti-infantry capability. Ah, but there you see the 5% bug or feature, depending on how it's going for you in any particular game, coming into effect there. That is exactly what I was alluding to earlier. 2 bars dropped, but the Volksgrenadiers can't pick them up. If I was Ahenian 6 years ago at this point, I would have, if I had any base structures remaining, I would have built Volksgrenadiers and armed them to the teeth with bars, Browning automatics, but alas no. No such facility, currently still standing in the Wehrmacht base. Oh, the M10 is focusing the MG, yes, think Ahenian, come on! We can forgive you for not having played the game this much at this state, but please don't face the rear of your tank to the tank destroying. Oh, the M10 is about to bite back in a serious way, if it's not going to get focus fired by the Stug 4. Come on Sherman, get round that rear armour, come on! I'm willing you on. As a primarily American player myself, perhaps I'm picking sides here, I apologise. And will we see a lull in the action, as you so often see in these big scale battles, where the commanders take stock of what remains and organise their next attack. Ah, Tier 3 constructed to the right of the artillery crater landscape. Looking much like the dark side of the moon here. Ah, the on-map was targeted at the MG in the house. Of course, MGs in houses are quite good against indirect artillery fire. Double the artillery usage. Oh, the HQ is looking worse for wear. You've got to be thinking, is the American going for some kind of mid-game annihilation attempt? It could be rather cheeky if they are. Barred riflemen laying down suppressing fire on the Volksgrenadiers here. Ah, the Volksgrenadiers inspired by their fight for survival. Oh, losing the man. The yellow cover crater that the Howie so thankfully created for them. Created a crater. Helped them out a lot in that engagement. Oh, we've got action on the vehicle front! We've got battles going on everywhere at this point. Stokes obviously, as soon as they saw the infantry support, thought better of it. So we've got 2 prepared lines of vehicles, with another Sherman joining the fray. So the Americans have parity with the Wehrmacht at this point. And although I have said worse of stickies at this point, with the Volksgrenadiers reinforcing and coming back to wreak vengeance upon the Americans, who still leave bars upon the ground. I forgot the point I was making. This game's too exciting. Who needs points? Who needs coherent speech when you got all that warfare? This Puma has been largely negated by the fact the American has heavy armour. I mean, perhaps this Puma could have been put to better use in the south, when the Americans nearly annihilated an entire Volksgrenadier squad, the hero Volksgrenadiers of the Reich. Sherman looking worse aware. Retreat! The M10's thought better of it. Why are you still there? You have no right to be facing 3 Stugs of frontal armour. Oh, off-map / on-map Howie. Nearly annihilating the Pioneers that have been keeping these Stugs in the action. I'd love to know how many kills this howitzer has. Unfortunately, due to the archaic replay system, as beautifully said by Confused in the chat, we're unable to see that. We can, however, see veterancy if you see the bottom tab here, the little bars underneath each icon. Each tank with 1 piece of veterancy. Other than the fresh Sherman, of course, which is looking a lot worse for wear, with roughly 7 to 10% left of its health bar. Oh, we saw the demise of the M10. The M10 that was the first tank fielded, finally gone down. Stug pays the ultimate price for its ferocity. And the Wehrmacht fearing for the VP battle. Victory points looking worse for wear, 170 remaining. I think worse for wear, by the way, is the phrase of this cast, much as remnants was the phrase of yesterday's cast. And the cutoff being taken. Oh, this is a ginormous push of titanic proportions from Ahenian. We've had a Sherman destroyed. We've had the VPs whited. The territories squandered for the Americans. You've got to be expecting some kind of artillery on here. Come on, Nystrom. Oh! The Tiger race is on the field. And at this point, well, it's very exciting about what we're going to see. I'm just going to quickly bring up a bit of information on the Tiger race. I've been waiting to do this for a while. Not everybody will be familiar with him. I appreciate that a lot of you are, and to you this may fall on deaf ears, but the Tiger race was basically a super Tiger. It wasn't a King Tiger, it was just a Tiger with 50% more health, and twice the accuracy and twice the penetration. That cannot be understated. So in a 1v1 Pershing battle, you've got to be favouring the Tiger race at this, because, yeah, basically, he is the daddy. A fictional tank commander called Joseph Schultz, Hauptmann Joseph Schultz, and obviously featured quite heavily in the Tales of Valor expansion, which had him in single player, of course. So yeah, I just thought I'd give a little bit of context on that, and let's see what he can do. Oh my god, he can destroy a bush. Heavy crush confirmed. That is a feature of the Tiger race. Can he destroy a haystack? Can he? I'm willing him to. Oh, no, he cannot destroy haystacks. Haystacks are formidable object. He does like to destroy tractors. Haystack crush confirmed. Vet 2 on the riflemen. Losing 2 men, and the other 4 wounded. Oh, don't lose the riflemen, retreat. With Volksgrenadier backup. The American player has got to be fearing for his life at this point. Ambush! Literally ambush through a bush on the Sherman, retreating for its life. I'd be giving betting odds of 2 to 5 in favour of the Wehrmacht player at this point. The Americans have lengthened way out to 5 to 1. If I was keeping a book on this match in betting, place your bets now. Although the double accuracy of the Tiger race not being overly represented by that shot, that was horrifically inaccurate. And he's pushing the Americans way back into their own base. Obviously with no replay indicator, I have no way of knowing how far along this replay is. Out of control Sherman. Another inaccurate shot sailing over the head of the Sherman there. And look at the health bar in this Tiger race. It's more than 3/4%. A firestorm being laid down on the barracks. The Sherman to the wise, so the infantrymen are suffering from that. Or the engineers rather. Sherman perhaps going for a flanking rear arm manoeuvre. Damaged engine on the Tiger. Those Porsche engines being rather volatile. At least I assume they are, according to the voice acting in this particular game. Bounce on the rear armour! Frontal armour penetration. There's number generators coming into play quite heavily. The impotent Puma of ultimate weakness just idling around. Perhaps that is the command vehicle from which the on-field general surveys the battlefield, because he sure can't shoot for shit. Absolutely ineffective in this game. In the early game, Tier 4 was dominant, as we said yesterday. Tiger Race pushing up, getting the Pioneers chasing after it. Come back! You're on fire! No help, man! Oh, that was very, very intelligent from the Sherman. He kited all the way from the house. Perhaps that distraction's bought the American player just enough time. We do see the upgrade for the Sherman. That is worth noting. Oh, and the howitzer. Oh, for everything I'd said about the howitzer not being an effective anti-armor capability, out of control Stug. The Tiger Ace is an island of panzer armor in the middle of the battlefield, utterly unsupported. The Puma, impotent as ever, seemingly just watching over the cut-off point now. The Tiger Ace. I must note, by the way, you can field more than one Tiger Race in a game, not at the same time, however. So even if he does go down, if he has 800 manpower, the Wehrmacht can push back again. Hauptmann will be resurrected. We can rebuild him. Let's do a territory count. The American has a vast proportion of territory, perhaps General Patton, but he's unsupported. He's pushed through southern France. It's of no use to the northern attack on the fortified SS brigade. Again, we have off map. He'd be on map, probably expecting this to be on the Tiger. Americans still dominating the VP possession and finally taking back their own cut off. Not taking off their own cut back. That's an entirely different sentence. And the impotent Puma getting punished. A lull in activity. You might as well announce it when it happens. There's no use trying to shoutcast something when the forces are trying to recuperate. I'm having a bit. Come on, Mr. Mouse, we've got a battle. And that's the worst sentence of the shoutcast. Where's Sherman? Where are the engineer backup? Do we have any remaining? Of course we do. What are you doing? Come on, be in action. Oh, the Americans were absolutely engrossed in their own conquest into the Wehrmacht base. How could I miss it? Nothing destroyed. We didn't miss much. The Tiger Race has come back. He has seen the danger, the annihilation victory. So the Wehrmacht is being split between two evils at the moment. You've got the VP victory on one hand, having the American having dominated the northern and the western VP points, and then the other evil having two bunkers that are basically flimsy pieces of concrete sticking out of the ground, and a HQ that's been artillery throughout the game. So although if you'd placed your bets on the Wehrmacht, you'd be sweating at the moment. The Americans may have thwarted them. Fresh Sherman there, another tank building. Is this going to be the final push for the American? That is the nail in the coffin of Ahenian. A scout Sherman just surveying the battlefield here, trying to pick off this MG. Come on, cap this VP. Ah, the Germans are capping their fuel. You need a base structures in order to field a combat presence. Is that the Sherman unleashing a smoke barrage? The doubly accurate Tiger, perhaps ineffective with that smoke barrage. What the Sherman needs is a gas mask. Okay, I had to utilise the fact that I had a gas mask to hand there. You don't get that every day. For as cheesy as that joke was. These bars on the field are really beginning to bug me, as I'm sure they are to everybody else that's glanced over that during this cast. I just itch for something to pick them up. 2 bars don't get dropped by 1 squad in every situation. It's a rare treat for the Wehrmacht player. They fail to utilise it though. Oh! And with capping pyres, what are they doing? They should be repairing these structures or building a Wehrmacht's quarter, perhaps in an isolated position. Obviously this player decided to do the honourable task of playing a lot of 1v1. They never mastered 2v2 on Ashless River. Or later to come the Sheld, which wasn't actually in the release of the game. Arguably the greatest map ever constructed in competitive RTS play. Tongue firmly in cheek there. And smoke utilised again! You don't see that in modern day company of heroes, that's for certain. Oh, this Tiger race with its full health. The Sherman providing a distraction. The other Sherman that has not unleashed its smoke barrage going for the rear armour damage. This is a beautiful sweeping combat manoeuvre. Both Shermans still on relatively high health. Something to be said for smoke barrage, but also something to be said for the frontal armour of a Tiger. It's a standoff. And when this ability's cooldown ceases, will we see the Tiger reign supreme? Have a little check north. We have seen the death of the MG, the capping of the 3rd VP point, the lone Tiger, Tier 3 being constructed under a rain of fire. Will the howitzer prove the decisive factor in this game, even after I wrote it off and questioned its use? What do I know? What do I know? These veterans from yesteryear, they play in a way we can never comprehend. I'm a peacetime general. This was when war was at its purest form. Oh, the Sherman is down. This Stug is proving a beautiful complement for the Tiger. But with 86 VPs remaining, what does the Wehrmacht have to offer? You can't construct anything but an officer from this building. What are you going to cap with Ahenian? Other than your 1 remaining Volksgrenadier squad, who could still prove to be heroes. But with no campcraft centre produced and no veterancy, and barred riflemen with veterancy on the field, their Wehrmacht's lingering infantry presence is largely negated. Triple capped. Idle riflemen gloating over the US dominance. Sherman with no damaged engine limping out of there. That's got to be frustrating for the Wehrmacht player. Another tank being produced from the Americans. Are they really starting to twist the screw on the Wehrmacht player? Gee. With a plus 62 and a 26. I don't know how much fuel. He's got fuel up the arse to be crude. And you see there the Wehrmacht player uncovering the Sherman through the shroud of smoke. The Sherman rattling on this. We've got a Vet 3 Sherman. The HQ is surely going to go down. A red streak across the screen there. Oh, this smells annihilation victory. Unless the Wehrmacht player has something special. Oh no, the Stug is down. The Tiger race battling mightily for the fatherland. Smoke deployed. 1 more shell required. The Sherman turns towards the HQ. Oh, and there we go. Playback over. Incredible victory there. I enjoyed that game quite a bit more than yesterday as well. That was yesterday was the first game in the Hall of Fame archive, but this game is truly worthy of being classed as Hall of Fame, in my opinion at least. I enjoyed that quite a lot. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow, I'm going to do one a day. I'm not going to do one a day on a permanent basis, but as I've just started, I want to keep the ball roaming. Tomorrow I'm going to cast a game with Seth in it, because he's playing in Sunday Night Fights tomorrow, isn't he? Against Dev M in the Qualifier 4 tournament final, in order to see, it's a fourth contender bout, as my Polizei Funk might call it. So yeah, I'm going to cast a game of his from 6 years previous tomorrow. I may start just around 7 o'clock, which might tie in beautifully with the start time for Sunday Night Fights. So tune in then. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe, because I'm not going to advertise every Shoutcast. I don't want to become obnoxious. So by subscribing, of course, you will see the videos when they are uploaded. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. And now here's the awkward bit where I fumble and end.